I know people flinch when I say, if there had not been a break, I don't know that I would have learned what I needed to learn. I needed that space. Did I like that it was thrust upon me? Absolutely not. Did I have a role in that? Absolutely. And I just don't think I would have taken the space and been able to sit back and reflect and look at how much my behavior landed as humiliation. And it did. Welcome back to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. We've dedicated this podcast to one of the most painful and least often talked about aspects of a family, and that is estrangement. If you're new to our community or returning, remember this is a space where we believe in no guilt, no shame, and no blame. I'm Dr. Janet Steinkamp. I am here as a mom today to talk about the parent perspective, as well as a communication specialist and coach to many families who are experiencing estrangement. I was once estranged from my daughter, who's here today, Brianna. Welcome. I appreciate you doing this with me and having these conversations.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be the same without you, right? We're in this together.
Yep.
So Brianna's here to provide the adult child's perspective as well, and to share some of the things that she learned through her process. And we hope this sparks some conversations for our listeners. And if you do have questions about what we talk about here, please come to office hours. We have virtual office hours. You just jump over to the website and you can register. All of the information will be in the show notes here so you can find us. So the topic today that we're going to talk about is we're going to look at humility versus humiliation. The terms are very often side by side in our thoughts, in our sentences, and in our experiences. And so we wanted to spend some time talking about them. So I want to make sure that we all are starting with the same definition. So I'm going to share the definition that we're working under in this conversation today. So for humility, we are defining that as choosing openness, curiosity, being teachable, wanting to learn, and acknowledging that we do not know everything, that what we know isn't always right, and being open to learning that. On the other side of the coin is humiliation. And humiliation plays a significant role in our experience in estrangement, both from the parents and from what we hear from adult children. Brianna, can you agree with that? Humiliation.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for definition, we are talking about feeling shamed, diminished, embarrassed, feeling like our dignity is threatened or taken away. And then another key difference that I want to point out is that in humility, we think of that as a voluntary position to take, a choice that we take a position of humility and openness, where humiliation is an involuntary experience. It's a reaction to something that we experience, something we hear, don't hear. It's more of a feeling experience and involuntary. So let's dig into our conversation. I want to share, just to kick us off, a moment when I realized as a mom that humility was much different than admitting failure. It feels like we're risking giving ourselves away, to open ourselves up and sit back and let go of our negative feelings of rejection, hurt, feeling like we're being punished, cast away. Stepping away from that is a significant task. In order to choose humility and openness, we have to step away from that. They are not experiences that we can hold at the same time. That doesn't mean we, by stepping away from our negative experience, that we forget it, that we forgive it. It means that we have to set that aside honestly and transparently, and really embrace the idea of being in a position of humility. So, Brianna, having heard me say that, was there a time when you equated understanding me with minimizing your own experience?
Yes, definitely. Um, but for a long time, I think, and even before the estrangement, I mean, everything, it was just felt versus. It was like if my perspective, if you didn't come out agreeing with my perspective, then my perspective was false and yours was accurate. That's how it felt for a long time, and it was just like this obstacle that I don't know how to describe the feeling. I just remember feeling it. It was just like not budging. Like this is what I have come to realize. This is how I feel about it. This was my experience with it. That is that. No one can say different. Um, and I really, at one point, wanted you to admit to that and kind of just be like, yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, I've been wrong this whole time. How did I not see that that was my perspective as well? Which of course is silly now to think about, but that's how determined I was to. But it's almost like a thing of validation. Like if I couldn't get you to agree that my experience or thoughts or reactions or opinions of what had happened was real, then it just didn't matter. Which I think is not an uncommon way to go into something that feels kind of like a fight or a disagreement or not seeing eye to eye, but it's really like the least productive way to go about something like this.
Right. Right. I felt the same way. Like a versus. Like it just felt like everything. It got so
Yeah,
big. Everything
right.
was
And
versus. Yeah.
yes, and I think that's a really easy way to feel power in a situation like estrangement. Like if you're just so certain and set in your ways and unwilling to see from somebody else's point of view, it can feel like easy power. Um, but I think, well, we can get into it, but I think if you learn to let go of that and accept humility into the situation, it actually becomes a much more powerful position to be sitting
Right.
in like a roundabout way. It doesn't seem like it. It feels very vulnerable, but it ends up, you don't have to use it as just a vulnerability.
Right. So what shifted your thinking? I mean, that's a big shift. We're talking about a swing from A to Z, right?
Hmm.
Humility from humiliation. That's a big
Yeah.
swing.
Yeah. And yes, it is a big swing. And I can say that the physical, like I have really intense body reactions to my emotions. And so I can tell you that the physical difference for me between feeling that need for being defensive and to convince everyone of my experience and just like that stubborn, I don't know, ickiness, the weight that I didn't even realize that that was putting on me when I
Mhm.
switched to having like a more humble mindset. It I felt like 1,000 pounds got lifted off of me, and it was like, oh, you know, I don't. It was like one end of the spectrum to the other. It was a huge swing. I think probably what there was lots of things that came into play. Part of it, I think, was just like growing up a little bit, um, which happens when you do cut off communication with your parents. Suddenly, you don't have that safety net. You have to rely on yourself a little bit more. Even if you didn't think you were relying on them before, it's like you kind of have to grow into a different role for yourself. And then just time, I think, probably helped. It was tiring to always feel like we were in a fight. And in order to get to humility, I really had to like put down my boxing gloves. And in some ways, it feels like you're then giving up on your fight, but that's not the case. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like we've talked about in different episodes about like how this process needs to be done for yourself before you do it for anyone else. Even though it, heavily involves someone that you care about, you have to be doing this for yourself first. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it's not going to read the same to others. And I think that this plays a big, I mean, that like intertwines with this. Um, because in order to move from the defense and trying to prove everything to humility, you really, like, one of the big things I had to do was stop caring about what everyone else thought. Like, I had to really get to the point where I was like, I actually don't need to convince anyone of my experience. It was my experience. No one can take that away from me. It also doesn't
Right.
mean that anybody meant for that to be my experience, but it's how my world was perceived by me at that time. And nobody can tell me that that's
Mhm.
wrong. And if they do, who cares? Like, I really had to let go of the need to be validated in my own experiences. And when I did that, it was just a big relief overall. So once you can let go of that need for validation for your own experience, it leaves room to I don't know, figure out what you're gonna do with it. Like, we all have experiences we don't like, or we do like, or we learned from, or felt a million different things. But the only, like, you can sit there and be like, oh, how could this happen? Somebody did this to me and somebody did that to me. But at the end of the day, you're just, I don't know, it's you're just wasting your own time and energy. So if you can get to a point where you sit and you're like, okay, this was my experience. This didn't feel good. This part felt embarrassing. This part felt, um, you know, makes me feel angry. This part made me lose trust in people, all these things. I just got to a point where I was tired of fighting all of that and just said, okay, cool. This is the card. These are the cards I was dealt. Now what? Like, do I need to fight? Do I need to push for other people to agree with me? Or am I comfortable just sitting, knowing that I've accepted my own experiences and now I'm the only one that can do anything with them?
So where was this? Like when you're saying this, where were you in the process of our estrangement? I mean, are you thinking about that once you were silent or before, or where does that fit in?
It's a good question. I think so. I would think that my situation was slightly uncommon in the sense that there were multiple relationships in my life kind of going through this, where I was constantly trying to like prove or show my experiences were real and somebody else's weren't, or it was like, so I don't know if it was I want to say like it was just kind of like a slow wearing down of me. And that doesn't sound positive, but it ended up being a positive, where I just kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? Whatever. Like, I don't need anyone else's anything really. Like, if it is just me and my experiences and my ability to react and all these things, and everybody else says I'm crazy and leaves, like, okay, then that is what it is. And I think so. I don't think it, I mean, I think it started happening early on in it. And I think I even like knew that that's what I wanted before the estrangement happened. Like, that's because part of it is, it's like a level of confidence in yourself. It's a level of like self-acceptance. There's a lot of that goes into being able to be humble in relationships. So I think I knew that that's how I wanted to be able to feel, but I wasn't able to get there before the estrangement. And then losing my connection with you guys certainly did make me feel more alone in my other relationships that weren't serving me very well at that time. Um, yeah, and I think I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I know whether or not people meant it or not, like my experiences have made me feel like, if nothing else, I need to be able to rely on myself. Like, I need to not It's great if you can rely on people, but I need to just not need to have anyone else's support or validation. And I need to be able to sit with that and be comfortable with it and be confident that like I could move forward. Because so much of my life, I mean, seriously, so much, all of the important relationships in my life felt like I had to be something that I wasn't, or I had to fill a role, or I had to please somebody else in every way. And I just was like, I don't want any of that. So forget everybody except me and my kids. And that's that. So I probably took a long time and there was probably moments where I thought I had reached that and then, had a setback or kind of, I don't know. I
Yeah.
know it's even after we reconnected, like I still am working on it. Like it's still,
Hmm.
you have to constantly be working on it. And, I don't know,
Yeah.
it feels different in every stage, but, and like it comes up in certain times during the reconnection that you have to use it and you have to like dig into it a lot because it's so easy to try to defend or try to prove. And it's just like a constant, and you can mess up and
Yeah.
start getting defensive and then be like, oh, okay, actually, never mind. That's not relevant right now.
Well,
Um,
I mean, defensiveness is a natural reaction to hearing something you don't want or that's threatening. So it only makes
yeah,
sense. I mean, that's always going to be a part of communication in a relationship. Um, so it makes sense that you would still feel that now. And I'm actually kind of glad to see and hear that for you because it's okay to defend the work you've done and who you are and you've worked hard to become, the independent woman that you are. And that's what we want to teach our daughters. But
hmm
when it is when we are perceived as the threat as mom, I mean, it shatters everything. It shatters everything.
right.
Um, so I want to come back to this though so remind me of this because you said even in the reconciliation, even now that we are back in contact, it's still work. We still
Yeah,
work on me not trying to take over and you being in charge of your life. I mean, I
right.
can feel that. I can feel that back and forth.
I'm not to a point yet in my experience with humility that like it ever really feels maybe a little bit now, but first nature or comfortable. Like
Right.
even outside, like whether it be in work or with friends or with you and dad or with my kids, like there's almost always a moment of, no, I didn't make a mistake. Or, like, no, I'm right about that. And then it's like, okay, I'll try it again. And
Like a double check, you mean? Like a self
yeah,
check?
like you can, like, it's just our instinct to protect
Uh,
ourselves and defend ourselves. So it is uncomfortable. And I don't know if that will ever get easier, but I can say that, like, I recognize the benefits from it
right.
very easily now. And they're pretty consistent, no matter the situation. But I think the other part with humility and like how you get to that in estrangement is like, I don't know if this is going to sound right, but if you can, so let's say everything that we've shared about our past and how there wasn't a big event. It was just like years of me feeling
Right.
um like not respected as I was growing and maturing, or lack of trust between the two of us. You didn't trust I could make the decisions. I didn't trust I could be open with you. All those things. It all feels really big and heavy when it's your own situation. But I think a huge part of it, the humility part, is accepting that your situation is not that uncommon. And this is not for everybody, obviously. But
Yeah.
if we're dealing with like the normal everyday things that just clash constantly for years and it just took a toll, if you can let go of like any victim mentality or um I don't this doesn't sound nice, but like pity party, it just doesn't help. And then you're able to say, okay, so my parents, I never felt like I could go to my parents openly and express myself or be vulnerable. Is there anyone in my life that could say the same thing for me? Like, is it possible that I've made people feel that way? And usually, I mean, that's just one example, but this is all really human stuff we're talking about. And
Right.
usually you can find yourself in the other role in a different relationship or at a different point, not constantly, but you can be like, oh yeah, that one time, somebody got mad at me for that. And it's like, if you can realize and remind yourself that we're all just people and we all make these same mistakes, and if you can find a time where you've made a similar mistake or made somebody feel a certain way or caused a reaction out of somebody or whatever it might be, then, and like, in your head, there could be a different conversation going on in your head, but more than likely you didn't have bad intentions with it. It's that you meant to express yourself a certain way and somebody else perceived it differently or something along those lines. But if you can see like how that maybe got misconstrued on their end, it's easier to be like, okay, maybe my parents didn't wake up every day trying to make me feel like a terrible person or something, because it all just gets blown up in your head and you
Yeah.
just start to think like you just can't even think straight. And it's like if you can dial it back down to there's absolutely a way that I have been that person that played that role in a different point in my life, then you can start to like be open to seeing it from a different point of view, like your
Yeah.
parents' point of view.
Well, I think that's a really, I think that's a helpful thing for a lot of parents to hear because they wonder and we'll do another episode on intent versus impact and how that becomes so twisted for people. And as you're saying, the ability to sort that out is so powerful. It's fundamental to sorting out an estrangement.
Mhm.
Because I agree with you. People don't set out when they get up in the morning, I'm going to go, hurt my child or hurt my parent. Rarely do people intend for that to happen. And yet it happens. It- There's not been an estrangement story that I've heard that didn't involve that. I didn't mean that to happen, but it happened. And how do I dial that back and bring it back? And it's very difficult to do. I wanted to go back to what you were saying in the beginning about what shifted your thinking. And I think for parents, both what I hear from other parents that I work with and in my own experience, the shift for me, it's like driving a standard car, where you're shifting first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And when I was raising you, when I was being your mom and you were young and I still was really pretty much in charge as parents are to be, although I certainly could have been open all along. I didn't ever shift into fifth gear with you. You started moving into adulthood. I've said this in other episodes. And I got stuck. I stayed in the parent role of maybe late high school, early college. And I didn't ever shift out of that until you were like, no, this is real. We're going to take a break and then you got to go figure this out. I mean, I don't think I caught up for years. And that I know people flinch, other people who are coaches and therapists working in estrangement, they flinch when I say, if there had not been a break, I don't know that I would have learned what I needed to learn. I needed that space. And did I like that it was thrust upon me? Absolutely not. Did I have a role in that? Absolutely. And I just don't think I would have taken the space and been able to sit back and reflect and look at how much my behavior landed as humiliation. And it
Mhm.
did. I know that now. Not the intent. It is how it landed. And
Right.
more as you grew older. Because
Mhm.
if I'm saying to you in many different ways, never outright, you're not capable of making this decision, as you become more able to make decisions, it's going to become increasingly humiliating, right?
Mhm.
There's a trajectory for that. And I don't know that parents in the middle of an estrangement can hear that easily. I see it coming more easily to people as I get more skilled at coaching in that area. And it can take parents, I work with people for 2 years to come to that, to be able to make that shift. And hopefully
Mhm.
not in a full no contact situation. But I want to point that out, that parents, we talk about working ourselves out of a job, but we don't want to get worked out of that job. And we can say it, we can acknowledge it, but to do it is a whole nother thing. And that's what I hear you saying. In order for you to get to the position where you shifted your thinking from, these are human beings, these are people, they make mistakes. They weren't perfect. We needed to be able to admit we weren't perfect. And there's a kind of a dance step that happens, I think.
Mhm.
But who starts it? Who makes the first move?
It's a great question. I don't know.
I can remember you saying very clearly to us, you are the parent. You are the parent, and you should be making these changes. And
Oh,
and I
yeah.
thought, the first thought is, well, do you want me to be the parent or don't you want me to be the parent? And
Well,
then
go ahead.
well, no, I just think once you settle down from that and get off your high horse a little bit as a parent, you can see
Yeah.
a bigger picture than that.
Right. I think I remember saying that many times because I said it because it felt like in the various attempts that I made in different ways to try to communicate this, nothing was ever done, and it usually, at least felt like, it ended up getting turned around on me. Like, I would bring up, "Well, it doesn't feel like you guys give me space to make decisions, or there's room to mess up or whatever," and then somehow it would, like, this is just how I felt. It would turn to, "Well, that's your choice, or that's how we can't make you feel anything," something along
Right.
those lines, where then I think the "you be the parent" thing, it was I think I meant it in like a role modeling way. Like,
Right.
why am I the one that's having to change everything? I'm coming to you with a problem. You're the adult, like my adult. I was also an adult at the time, but you're the real adult. And why why are you telling me to go figure it out when I'm telling you I have an issue with something that you're doing? You're my parent. That should matter enough for you to sit and think for a second and try to problem solve or ask questions or do anything besides just say, "Not me, not my, like,
Right.
this isn't me." You've,
Right.
you know,
Right. So
that's what I
that's
meant by it.
Yep. Yes. Sorry, I know I interrupted.
You're fine.
So when you were asking that, what I hear is you were asking us to take a position of humility, openness, curiosity,
Mhm.
um, willingness to listen and learn. That doesn't mean we had to say, okay, we're not the parent now. I guess we're going to have to be, we're going to have to go to this position of humility and be open. You know that that's congruent with being a parent, not incongruent. That is a natural part of parenting. And yet it feels so threatening. Like,
Mhm.
if I say I could learn something more, that means I've been wrong and not a good parent.
Mhm.
And I know that that's the feeling at the time. I know that feels like the perceived threat. And just as you said in the beginning, that's where the real power is. That's where the real influence is. And
Mhm.
many, many parents make that shift. Many parents, the majority of parents make that shift. A
Mhm.
lot of us can't without a wake up call, some kind of aha moment that our adult children tend to provide to us. And that's what leads or is is the seed of estrangement from my experience.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Janet. I hope that this episode is meeting you where you are in your estrangement journey. I wanted to take a pause here just for a moment because conversations like this one don't have to end with this episode. That's what virtual office hours are for. A live, affordable question and answer space, usually Sunday afternoons, where my once estranged adult daughter Bree and I sit down with folks who are trying to find their footing and some clarity in the middle of the heartbreak of estrangement. Bree and I take your questions and offer information and perspectives from both sides. The link to virtual office hours is in the show notes. Register today. We hope to see you Sunday. Now back at it.
I'm just trying to think, like, as an adult child, what would have been helpful for me to hear about this conversation in a different aspect of estrangement. So with you and me, with our history of like me feeling shame and how failure was not an option, all of those like high pressure, perfection type mentality, which a lot of that has to do with humiliation. Like there's a lot of humiliation that comes into that because failure is humiliation. You know, I've shamed the family and how humiliating. Like there was just so much humiliation in that part of it that I think if there's adult kids who have had similar experiences that have led to the estrangement, it's really taking the step over from like anything but my perspective and don't ask questions and blah, blah, blah is humiliation. Getting past that can be really difficult because that's our mind. Like we were raised that humiliation just guides us, right? So one thing that helped me with it and that became kind of like a little power tool for me in being able to be humble and to put aside the humiliation or to take control of the humiliation, the idea of it coming into play is it feels backwards. But let's say, as the adult child, if you're thinking about like reconnecting, or even if you're way early in the stages of estrangement and it's kind of out in the future, I knew, at least in my experience, that if we were to reconnect, the only way it would work is if I admitted to everything that I knew you guys would hate that would be seen as a failure, like that, that I'd been afraid to tell you. There was a lot in my life that I hadn't told you guys about that was humiliating to me. And I knew if we were going to really reconnect, I would have to just rip off the Band-Aid. And that's scary. Like that's really scary. And also like probably good. I haven't really thought about it in that way that when we talk about timing, I think that probably plays a role in kids' timing because there's a weight that goes along with it. If they're really serious about like a two-way working on ourselves reconnection, taking that thought of like, oh my God, I'm going to have to tell them all of this, all
Come
of the
clean.
mistakes I've
Gotta come
made.
clean.
How did I get to this place in my life? We're just going to have to rip off the Band-Aid. And that's when like the not caring what other people think anymore comes into play. Like you have to be confident and be like, well, it's done. This is where we are. It is what it is. But to take control of the humiliation, I don't know if you would agree with this on your end, but at least in my head, this is what I do. I'm like, okay, because humiliation really comes, at least for me, it wasn't exactly if I made a mistake. It was if somebody saw or caught that I made a mistake and called me out for it. That's the humiliating part for me. Like I can make a mistake and if nobody notices, it's like, okay, whatever. But it's the being called out for it. So if you can call yourself out before anybody else does, you take away the power of the idea of humiliation. You know what I mean? Like you just take it out of play. Like, okay, so I know that in our relationship, I do XYZ nobody can come to you and be like, you always do XYZ. You've already said it. So you're setting up the situation for growth. You're taking away, and again, this is like personal to my relationship with humiliation and shame and stuff. It just takes it out of play. You've already put it out in the open. The initial like putting it out there doesn't feel good, but
Right.
almost always the reaction from the other party, whether it be your parent or somebody at work or a friend or whoever, if you're just willing to be like, hey, I messed up and I see this, and you know, whether I don't know, I'm going to work on it, or what do you think about that, or did you notice that, or how could I do this better, whatever it might be, the other person is almost always going to be like, oh, I didn't even have to say it, like she already said it, now all we can do is move forward. It takes away the fear of somebody else pointing out your flaws, which is really like, for me, that was a super difficult part to get over. But if you think of it as like a tool, like a
Yeah.
ninja star, like I'm gonna throw it out there, and then it's like, oh, it's done. Now try to bring it up. I already brought it up, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That was all really jumbled, but
No,
I
I
just
actually, yeah, I think it made a lot of sense. Go ahead.
no. I don't know if it did or didn't, but I can retry another episode too.
No,
But
I think what's interesting there is, I mean, there is a lot in there. There's so much to say when we talk. There's so much to unwind. We have, we have really interesting conversations, not even when we're recording,
hmm
which I love. So
hmm
really, as an adult, it's not the parent's position or responsibility to point out what they think the errors are. That's one of the places we get in trouble.
hmm
You know if you make a mistake. You don't need us to tell you made a mistake, and maybe you didn't think it was a mistake. So that's part of the shifting to fifth gear. Yes, when you're young, we have to say, yeah, that was an error. You need to do it this way. Yeah, you have to respect people's property. You don't get to just break somebody's thing. That's
hmm
part of parenting, but not when people become adults. We have to shift away from that. And that's the humility. Well, maybe we could learn something from what they did. Maybe we can learn something from what you think is a mistake. So at the same time, you're throwing out your ninja star, which I love as a visual. Our ninja star is to keep our yapper shut because you don't need us to say you made an error. If that's where you are feeling the humiliation because somebody's pointing out your error,
hmm
and we learn that that's not our job anymore to point out an error, we're golden. I mean, if those two things can come together, we're not doing something that feels like humiliation,
hmm
that you experience that way, and you no longer need to be carrying around a bunch of ninja stars to try to fend us off. I mean,
hmm
the energy that's put into that mutual stutter step, if we can figure that out, that's huge in healing a
yeah.
relationship. And that's just one of many places. Um, if we can figure out those pinch points together, you know, it, we're so
Yeah.
much more powerful. That's
hmm
where you build trust. And um, I do hear you, even now, mid 30s, early 30s,
Just
saying,
mid now.
even I can still hear you saying, oh my gosh, I screwed up. And me thinking, oh, that didn't seem like a screw up to me. That seems like that was not a big deal. You fixed it. You moved on.
hmm
That's what we do as adults. If I had a quarter for every time I made a mistake in a day, I'd be rich. It, and you just can't
Yeah.
get stuck on these things. So it's like, I want to say to you here, I want to empower you not to have to throw out every time you think you've made an error in
hmm
order to fend off me saying you made an error.
hmm
And that's important. I think
Yes.
that's a good,
And I don't feel like I need to all the time anymore with you or anything. I was just saying like that's one way to get over, like I used to get physically nauseous if I felt like I failed or somebody was going to notice I made a mistake, and like to get over that like little hump of, is this going to turn into a humiliating situation. It was just like, well, I'm just going to say it and then it's done.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think from what you said with like a lot of, it's not that you can't point out or agree that a mistake was made or something as a parent. I think the most important thing, at least in my situation, you've always had really big reactions, and I
Yeah.
have hated your reactions forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and that was, it's like your reaction was an audible or visual demonstration of my failure, right? And
Uh,
so
yeah.
when we were reconnecting and when my life was up in shambles, and thank God we were back in each other's lives and everything, like I had, like I was saying, I had to go through all the things. Like I had to really just be like, here's where my life's at right now, and
Mhm.
I need some help. Um, or like support, or I could use some guidance now. But like I think of, I don't know, just a few, there were a few big ones in there that I had to tell you guys, and I just was sure that your reaction was going to be like, oh my God, how are we going to recover from this? This is so bad. I just, because those would have been fair reactions, and you guys didn't. And I think that that's really important. Like from the parent side, you don't have to pretend like there's not a mistake made or anything like that. It's like put on your de-escalation cap, because your kid already knows it's a mistake. It's going to need to be fixed. You making big noises or sighing or, whatever, that helps no one. It just makes your
Right.
kid feel humiliated, even if you're not trying to. So it's like, if you can see your kid opening up and saying these things and working on being humble, the best thing you can do is to almost not react.
Right.
Almost like feel out the situation, let them get the full sentence out, stay calm, and then be like, oh. And it goes both ways, and it doesn't have to be about, I don't know. I just think reaction's really big as a
Right.
parent.
Right.
It's
Right.
huge.
80% of communication, 75, 80% is nonverbal. And we don't
Right.
even, and that's every human being on the face of the earth.
Hmm.
So, um, understanding our nonverbals is really key to this. And, and I know my reactions are big. I mean,
Hmm.
but now we can laugh about it more. I mean,
Hmm.
it's easier now that, when I figured that out, you said a
What?
couple times, do you
Figured what
think,
out?
that,
Your
how
reactions
big
are big?
how strongly my reactions impacted you?
Mm.
You said once, "Do you think you're not in my head? I cannot get your voice out of my head. I have to work to lower the volume on you so I can hear myself."
Hmm.
And I was stunned. I was stunned. I think it would be very helpful to parents to listen and think about that, because I hear almost, I'd say 95 to 98% of the parents who come to me will say, I wonder if they even remember me saying this. Do you think, I will say, your voice is in their head. I promise you, your voice is in their head. Oh no, there's no way. They wouldn't be doing this if they could hear what I'm saying in their head. And I I just don't think it works that way. I think that's one of the reasons adult children pull away, to get us to quiet down and give them
Yeah.
space.
And also what you just said, they wouldn't be doing this if I were in their head. That is a tricky spot to be in as a parent, because it sets the scene to be them defying you or what you
Right,
taught them or what you
right,
think that their
right,
values should be, when
right,
that's not how life works. It's not like your child is just growing up and everything's simple and as it should be, and you know linear and clean. There's a million different variables coming into play that you don't even know about,
right,
for
right,
why they're making those decisions. Like, yes, you probably are in their head saying don't do that, And they're probably like, yeah, I shouldn't do this. This is not good. I know this isn't good. But a lot of times there's probably XYZ coming into play where there's not really much other choice. So they're doing the best they can. But then
Yeah.
that's, then they start feeling shame about that because they know you wouldn't accept it. And you start feeling disappointment because they know better. And it's like this whole, it's all such a
Yeah,
mind
it's a trickle
thing.
down. It's a position when people are in that mindset, they're anything but being in a position of humility. There's no curiosity, there's no openness to other variables
Hmm.
like you're saying. It's a position of the power parent, the
Hmm.
authoritarian parent. And there is a time when a child's being raised that the parent does need to be the authority. They
Hmm.
do need to be. We can't just say, you know, whatever you want when kids are in second grade. It doesn't work that way. I mean, I
No.
know parents who try that and it does not go well for them. It just,
Yeah.
and it
No,
certainly
there's,
doesn't go well for the kid. Yeah.
right. No, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think um, kids need to humble themselves and think from their parents' perspective. Like, okay, I know my mom loves me. I don't think she wanted me to feel ashamed for all these things in my life. That is how I felt, and it's not going to go away. But I know that that's not what her intention was. So let me hear more about this so she can learn what things made me feel that way. And if she's open to it, maybe adjust some things on her end. I can hear from her perspective and maybe let go of some of the anger or resentment or whatever that might be. And parents being open and humbling themselves to being like,
Yeah.
why would my kid be doing this? It's if we
Right.
both just like,
Yeah.
why? I know my kid loves me. I know I provided for them. I know we have a million great memories. Um, but why would they be doing this? Let me explore that. Let me ask questions instead of making assumptions, instead of pushing. If everybody would just step back and
Yeah. Take a breath.
ask questions, watch your reactions, slow down, I think that would get people pretty far.
Okay. I love this conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful. Okay. So we probably need to start wrapping up. So let me ask this. What is one act of humility you saw in me as your mom that made it easier for you to trust me?
Well, the biggest, I know we just talked about it, the biggest was you reining in your reactions. Because then I felt more open to telling you things, and then you would keep your reactions in check, and then I'd tell you more things. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, I can trust that her world is not going to fall apart if I say this truth that she's not going to like. The other thing was, I've said it in a different episode, but like one of the most impactful moments for me in the estrangement was when you stopped reaching out. And to me, that was you humbling yourself, being like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to force my way into this one. I'm going to have to try something else. Why don't we try exactly what she's asked for? Even though it sucks on my end, it hurts, it's uncomfortable, it's exactly the opposite of what a parent should do. I do think that humility played a part in that. I don't know if that's a word I would have like used if somebody asked me, how are you feeling right now? Like, oh, I feel like she's practicing humility. I don't know if I would have said that, but I can
Yeah.
see how you had to let go. And there's humiliation in that, like to have to tell people I'm not talking to my daughter anymore. Like there humiliation's in pretty much everything. So I think that you took that and instead of seeing it as humiliation, you used it as a tool and humbled yourself. And I don't know, that makes sense,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. I think it was embarrassing. It was
Hmm.
humiliating, but those were my choices.
Hmm.
Once I figured out that it was actually positive and constructive, it aligned me with you. It was a weird thing.
Hmm.
It was like crossing the road. Like all the naysayers that how can she not be speaking to you? How can she ask you to just not see the grandchildren? How can that? That's terrible.
Hmm.
That's where I aligned. And then once I
Right.
let go of that and aligned and said, no, I gotta do this because it means too much to me. She means too
Yeah.
much to our relationship. It was like crossing the road and
Hmm.
aligning with you. It was actually very empowering.
Do you think, okay, so with that situation of you finally not reaching out at Christmas time,
Yeah,
um, was there any part of you that felt like or worried about on my end, like if there was a power thing where I would be like, haha, I won, stay out of my life kind of thing? Or was that not,
never.
never? Okay.
Not you, not
Yeah.
you, but your partner, absolutely.
Oh, right. That makes
Yeah,
sense for sure.
yeah, never
But
you.
yeah, so I think like, yeah, there was humiliation with like a social humiliation that
Yeah,
came into play with that you had to, well, I don't know if you did or you didn't, but I would think you had to eventually just let go of caring about that as heavily and do what you needed to do to survive and to try to make progress. And like, you just gotta, I don't know. I wish everybody would
yeah,
just stop caring about what anybody thought.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
it's a funny thing because it's guardrails, right? We have to think about
I
like what
know.
are the societal rules and there's some of that keeps us all safe. But when it becomes
Yeah.
your identity and your family identity and what you are projecting onto your kids' identity, then things start going south and it's too much. It's too much. It becomes harmful. It's like
Hmm.
what isn't that way? There's a point of diminishing return. And great things become harmful if there's too much of them.
Yeah.
Goes both ways. Well, I was just going to say one thing that I saw in you that was an act of humility that really
Mm.
gave me hope, that made me think things were going to turn around. Um, I think when you came to see Grandpa,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting because I felt guilty about coming to see grandpa. I mean, I felt good coming to see him, but I felt guilty that it was, I don't know. I think I felt guilty that like you offered to get us all there and keep us there. Like it felt like, oh, she should not be paying for anything in my life right now. Like we haven't even talked for 2 years. Um, yeah. And I think I felt guilty that we didn't have a conversation. You weren't even here. That's just interesting. We don't have to dig into that right now, but that is,
yeah,
I'm glad that you saw it that way. And it was difficult. Like it was a difficult decision to make, and it was meant to be something that gave both of us hope. I think, like you
yeah,
offering to bring us there and me coming there. But
yeah,
yeah, it was a very different experience on my end.
yeah,
Not in a bad way. Not I'm not saying that like how sometimes we talk about experiences, just like I don't know. That's interesting.
yeah. Well, for people who are listening, I want to encourage you to go listen to our first 3 episodes because you'll all understand that part of this conversation better. I think Brianna's right. This isn't the place to go into all that. We already have. So please go listen to those other 3 episodes so you understand that better. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and here we are. Here we are. So, any last words? Any last words before we close?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Be humble.
I'm not laughing. I think that is find your way to humility. Yeah. So for our listeners, we are hoping we have a little list here of 6 things that we hope you'll take away from this episode. We want to encourage you to think of humility as a choice. Humiliation is an experience imposed or perceived. Humility is a choice. Healthy accountability, taking responsibility for our own actions and words, preserves dignity and encourages growth. And those are key elements of what we hope to do with our children, right? That's what we want to do as parents. Vulnerability and humility require courage, not weakness. There is a sense of risk, and I want to let you know that it takes courage to make the decision to be vulnerable, and the payoff is huge. Repair happens when both people feel respected and respected enough that there's enough trust to be honest, that they can be honest and not return to the old patterns. And then reconciliation is built through mutual humility, not mutual humiliation. The humiliation, the you're wrong, you're bad, that victimization loop that we go through, that has to be set aside. We have to step out of that and into a position of wanting to learn more, understand more, and not have to be right, not have to be the person who's right. So Brianna and I hope that you take those little tidbits away with you today. If you want to talk about this more, jump over to the website and register for our virtual office hours. We love these conversations in real time, in life, live the lived experience with you. And if this episode gave you something to sit with, to hold on to think about, I'd love for you to keep the conversation going with us. And I'd appreciate it if you would also share this with someone else who might be going through an estrangement or a difficulty in their relationship. Please invite them to join us in these episodes in our podcast. It's really important that people know they're not walking through this alone. Everything you need, all the links, all the upcoming workshops, office hours, the Writers Lab, all of those services are on the website, whenouradultchildrenwalkaway.com. Again, that's whenouradultchildrenwalkaway.com. And we look forward to having you join us for a future episode. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to When Our Adult Children Walk Away, presented by Dr. Janet Steinkamp in partnership with Balancing Life's Issues and produced by me, Greg. Do you want to connect with Dr. Janet? You can find resources, connect with her directly, and learn more about the work we do at whenouradultchildrenwalkaway.com. And be sure to follow and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.